Yo, what's good, everybody? It's Austin here, or Luna. So today's story time is a pretty good one. Kind of funny, kind of crazy, just all around, just one of those stories that kind of reminds me of the early days on this channel. Those stories about how when I was like a really young teenager, just being kind of mischievous and, whatever you want to call it. Today's story time is about the time that your boy got picked up by my dad while I was stoned. I hope you enjoy it. Leave a like on the video if you do. And let's get into it. So today's story time all takes place back when I was 16 years old. The same age as yesterday's story time, actually. This was actually around the same time as that story time. This takes place probably about a month after yesterday's story. It's kind of close to the other one. So today's story time, it all starts off like any other regular day. It was a school day, and I did not go to school on this day. Your boy was kind of like in the process of dropping out. I hadn't officially dropped out yet, but around this time, I was like kind of skipping a lot, and I knew I was going to be dropping out soon. So yeah, I don't recommend doing that. You shouldn't skip school as much as I did, but I'm just being honest. I was skipping school quite a bit at this point. So yeah, I woke up at like 6 in the morning, and my mom had already left for work on this day. And I was like, you know what? She's not here. She can't stop me. I'm going to skip. So that's what I did. I just didn't go to school this day. I watched the bus go by, and I just stayed at home. My mom was already at work. My brothers were already at work. I was just home alone for the next 5 to 6 hours. So I decided to have a nice chill day. So I made myself some coffee, sat down on my Xbox right away, and just started playing some Skate 3 with one of my friends who also didn't have school that day. He stayed home sick or something, or he skipped. I don't remember. I think he was sick. And I was playing with him, playing some Skate 3. And I thought to myself while I was playing Skate, I'm going to have the whole day to myself for about the next 5 to 6 hours. This would be the perfect time to smoke some weed. Now, I didn't have any, so I had to hit up a friend of mine who was older than me, who sold it. And I was like, can you bring some by? And he's like, sure, how much you want? And I was like, an eighth? And he's like, cool, sounds good. Now, I had some money from my birthday recently, so I used pretty much the last of my birthday money to buy an eighth of weed, which is just, looking back, there was a lot of other things I probably could have bought with that money that would have been a lot more useful, but whatever, right? I got a good story out of it at least. Anyway, yeah, the dude pulled up like 20 minutes later. I bought the weed. Next thing I know, I'm in my backyard, right behind my pool, smoking this weed by myself, chilling, listening to music. And I can't lie, even though I knew that in like a few hours I would be in a world of trouble, I didn't care. Like, my mom was going to come home later and probably ground me for quite a while because I kept skipping and it was just adding up, and my mom was very fed up with it. But yeah, I just didn't give a shit. Partly was probably because I was smoking my worries away, but whatever, right? So after I got done smoking, I went back inside, and I sit back down on my couch, and I continue to play Skate with one of my friends. And while I'm playing Skate, probably about 20 minutes later after I smoked, I get a phone call, and I look down, and the caller ID says Dad. And I'm like, shit. Now, I don't talk about it a lot on this channel, but the difference between my mom and my dad was pretty great. So my parents were both split before I was born, right? They broke up before I was a thing. However, my mom and my dad both still co-parented me. They didn't live together, but I would still see my dad 3 to 4 times a week and spend days and nights at his house all the time. And it was really nice because my mom was the one that had the authority, I would say. She was definitely the one that would ground me and yell at me and kind of have to discipline me, And then my dad was just the chillest individual on earth, and he always has been. Anybody that meets my father is like, dude, he is so nice. And it's true. He is the chillest man on earth. I hope to one day show you guys how chill he is. I don't know, maybe make a video with him or something, because the dude's a legend. He's also the reason I can make music. That dude is where I get all of my musical abilities from. Legend. Anyway, yeah, he was always the chill one. So whenever my dad was calling me, I always knew that I wasn't going to be yelled at. Even if I was in trouble, he was always very calm about it. I saw the caller ID, and I was like, shit, he's probably going to tell me that I should be in school or something, but let's hear what he has to say. So I answer the phone. I was like, hello. And my dad's like, hey, what are you doing? I was like, I am just hanging out in the living room right now. Why? What's up? And he's like, I just got a call from your mom. You skipped school today? I was like, yeah, I did. He's like, Austin, you can't keep doing this, man. You're going to get yourself in so much trouble. I was like, I know, I just woke up and I was so tired. I didn't want to go. I'm sorry. And he's like, yeah, well, the school called your mom for like the third time this week. Like, you got to stop skipping. You're going to get yourself in a bunch of trouble. And also, you can get us in trouble because, we're not supposed to let you skip school. And I was like, I know, I'm sorry. And he's like, have you eaten yet today? I was like, no, I haven't really. I'm pretty hungry. He's like, where do you want to go? I'll come get you. And I'm like, no, you don't have to do that. He's like, no, come on, like, let's go somewhere. And I'm like, all right, you want to get like McDonald's or something? He's like, sure. And that was another thing about my dad. That dude would just like feed everybody. Like, if I was hungry, that man within a minute would be at my house with a Happy Meal. If someone I knew was hungry, he'd be at their house with food. Like, he just always was trying to make sure people weren't hungry. It was so fucking funny. He's still like that to this day. Literally, I went to lunch with him yesterday and he like bought me all my food. He's just a selfless dude. But yeah, next thing I know, he's on the way to my house to pick me up and go and get McDonald's. And now I'm kind of nervous because even though my dad is a very chill dude and he's always very understanding, I still did not want to be near him while I was stoned like this because I didn't know how he would react. I think if he knew I was stoned, he would still be pretty disappointed and probably, be upset. So I didn't want to like blow my cover, So about 10 minutes later, my dad pulls into my driveway and he calls me and he's like, I'm here. I'm like, all right, I'll be right there. So the first thing I do is I run into my bathroom and I quickly spray cologne so I don't smell like weed, which is just like the worst thing ever. It's not going to change anything. It'll maybe cover it up a little bit, but for the most part, it just blends with it. It smells like weed cologne. So after I do this, I go in my bathroom cabinet and I find this little bottle of Visine and I pop those in my eyes. And I didn't really give it any time to like work. So it just made my eyes even more red by the time I was out the door and walking up to my dad's car. So it just looked that much more obvious that I was stoned. So yeah, I walked outside, got into my dad's car. He says, hey, what's up? I was like, hey, how you doing? And he's like, you want McDonald's still? And I was like, yeah. And we take off driving towards the McDonald's. Now about a minute into the drive, he looks over at me while we're at a red light. And he goes, are you okay? And I look over at him and I was like, yeah, why? What's up? He's like, your eyes, they're like beet red. And I like pull the visor down and I look at the mirror and I'm like, oh yeah, sorry, I put some eye drops in and like it made them red before it gets better. And he's like, why'd you put eye drops in? And I was like, oh, I woke up today and my eyes were just super dry and like I wanted to put some hydrating eye drops in. And he looks at me and he smiles and he goes, you don't have to lie. And I was like, what? He's like, don't lie to me. I know you're lying. And I'm like, what would I be lying about? He goes, we both know what you're lying about. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, honestly. And he's like, come on, Austin. And I was like, all right, fine. And he goes, I can smell it. I know what you did. And I'm just like, all right, please don't tell mom. He's like, I won't. I'm not gonna. But that's under one condition. You can't keep skipping school like this. You can't just skip school and get high every day. It's just not a way to live. And I was like, I know. I'm stressed lately. I don't know what's going on. I can't fathom the thought of going to school every day. It's so overwhelming. And I was telling him the truth, man. Back then, like getting up and going to school, for some reason, just in my brain, it was the worst thing in the world for me. And part of that was probably just because a lot of the people that I went to school with kind of sucked. I can't lie. I mean, I had some good friends there, but a majority of the kids there were just like trash. And also I had those teachers that were the type to be like really, really judgy. There was a couple that weren't. I had a few great teachers, but a lot of them were very, very like judgy. And like if you slipped up even one time, they would forever hold it against you. And just my school kind of sucked. So yeah, I dreaded going. And he understood that. And after I told him this, he was like, listen, I completely understand. Like, I didn't go to college. I barely finished high school. Like, I hated school every day. But you know what? I forced myself to do it because I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. And when I reached that end of the tunnel, I kind of miss it sometimes. I sometimes miss school, and you might too one day. Now, I'm just going to say it now, as Luna from the future, current Luna, I do not miss high school one bit. But my dad's experience in high school is a little bit different than mine, and I'm sure a lot of you guys will have a much better experience than I did. Now, anyway, my dad ends up telling me, like, hey, I understand, but you got to keep going to school. You can't just quit. Funny enough, I ended up quitting like a few months later, but that's besides the point. After this, we got McDonald's. We hung out there for a little bit, ate our food, and he just was not as upset as I thought he was going to be. I truly thought, like, even though my dad's a very chill individual, I thought when he found out that I was like smoking weed that day, that he was going to ground me for like a month or something, but he didn't. He didn't ground me at all. In fact, he completely understood. It's like he knew what I was going through, which was very nice. That isn't to say that, you know, I still wasn't under a magnifying glass for quite a bit after that. I remember like the weeks following, my dad would ask me like every day on the phone, like, you smoke any pot today? And I'd be like, no. And he'd be like, good, like, you know, chill, don't do that. So yeah, you know, he was still being my dad and, you know, being a parent, but he was much more understanding than I thought he was going to be. And yeah, like I remember on the way home from McDonald's, he just like let me put on some music and we jammed all the way home, and then he dropped me off. And before I went inside, he was like, Austin, don't let your mom find out about what you did today, okay? And lay off the weed, seriously. And I was like, all right, I will. And I went inside, and the rest of that day, I just kicked it, chilled. I didn't smoke anymore before my mom got home because that would just be risky business. And yeah, I took it easy for a little bit, and I didn't smoke for a little bit just because it just seemed real, man. My dad seemed like real with me, and there's been plenty of times where my mom had as well, but this time felt more like he was coming from a place of relating to me than more of a place of discipline. So it made me kind of look at it with a different outlook. I was like, all right, like my dad's been here before. He knows like what it's like to be my age and be stressed about school and stuff, and I'm going to take his word for it. So I laid off smoking for a little bit. I'm not going to act like I quit smoking. I definitely still smoked, you know, not too long after this, but I did lay off for like a week or two. And I just kind of like took it easy. I went back to school for a couple weeks and didn't skip for a while. And I tried to be, you know, a good student. Now, I'm not going to lie, I still quit school shortly after this. But in the end, I would say everything worked out. Even though I didn't graduate like my dad did, you know, I still have a pretty cool career. And like my dad, my mom, pretty much everybody in my family, for the most part, not everybody, but most of my family supports me. So yeah, I mean, in the end, I'd say I had a pretty happy ending. But yeah, this story time was just insane because in the moment, like when my dad was coming to pick me up, I truly thought that I was going to get like grounded for a month or something, or like, you know, yelled at by him or something. Because even though my dad's one of the chillest people on earth and he never really yelled at me, getting in his car stoned to go get McDonald's is kind of crazy to do. So I really thought I'd get a different reaction, but it was completely opposite what I thought. He was so chill about it, so cool. And yeah, shout out him. Love that dude. But yeah, guys, that's the story of how my dad picked me up stoned. Sorry it didn't end with me getting grounded for 9 years. You know, I'm sure you expected some crazy climatic ending, but I think it was still pretty good. If you enjoyed this story time, leave a like on the video. I'd really appreciate it. Feel free to leave your story times in the comments down below. And subscribe if you're new. I'll see you guys later. Peace. I be fully loaded, I be whipping foreign cars. Always stay devoted, mama.